You're listening to Drummer Daily, the only daily podcast just for drummers. Hey, if you want to get better at playing with a click track, and who doesn't, go to boomclick.net/start today. Hey there, welcome to another episode of Drummer Daily. I'm Daniel. Thanks for stopping in, hanging out with me today. I am wiping the tears from my eyes because I almost thought I lost something really cool. What did I almost lose? Well, I actually decided today, or not today, but I decided a few days ago, but I actually did it today. I decided to start shooting some cool little tips and tricks videos and put them on YouTube. And I just finished recording the first one, which is all about how to play more quietly, but still have some feel on the drums. And so I recorded the whole thing, and I multi-tracked it into Logic so that I could have good quality audio on the video. And I recorded the whole thing once, and about halfway through recording it, I ran out of space on my camera. So I was like, so I stopped and I went up and I deleted a bunch of old videos off of my camera, went back, restarted it, and then got through the whole video, felt pretty good about the content I was able to share, and looked down, and at some point during the recording, I have my laptop sitting next to my drums over here. At some point though, during the recording, the computer had either crashed or turned off or something like that. So I was like, oh no. And so I opened back up, I turned the computer back on, opened back up the file from Logic, and there was nothing in any of the tracks. And I'm like, oh man. So I had this little thought, and I went over to the audio files folder that it creates inside your file system, and somehow it had written all the audio files there still. It didn't show them in Logic, but they were all still there, so I was able to salvage it. So I salvaged that. The video should be out hopefully by the time you hear this podcast. And if you'd like to check that out, I believe it's going to be the easiest place to find it probably will be if you go to danielhadaway.com, and then there should be a videos item up in the menu of that website, or it probably will just end up being danielhadaway.com/videos. I don't know. Probably the safest bet is just to go to danielhadaway.com and then click on the videos link in the menu. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to upload that. It'll be on YouTube as well, so you can probably find me on there as well. But anyway, that's not what I want to talk to you about today. So today, I want to talk to you about, I think we've covered picking out snare heads or tom heads, kind of drum heads in general, some tuning tips, things like that. But we've not talked about picking out kick drum heads. And I thought I'd give you a couple of tips, just considerations really to think about. And you'll understand why I'm saying just considerations when I get there in a few minutes. But there's a couple of things we need to think about before we pick out and buy a new kick drum head. All right, so the first thing we need to think about before we get a kick drum head is we need to think about what we're going to end up doing with it once it's on the drum. So really the thing is this: if you're going to put a kick drum head on a drum and then you are going to fill up your bass drum, your kick drum, with a massive blanket or a huge pillow, or leave the front head off the kick drum. I'm talking about the batter head, by the way. The side that the beater hits, actually. That's the head I'm talking about. If you're gonna just fill it up with pillows and leave the front head off, or do something else, I just want to tell you that really it doesn't matter. If you're gonna muffle a drum head that much, you could cut out a circular cardboard box and put it on your drum. Well, maybe not that, but you know what I mean. You could stretch a trash bag across your drum. If you're gonna muffle it that much, it's gonna sound the same pretty much, especially if it gets mic'd up. It's gonna sound the same. So you need to just know that if you're going to do that with your drum, don't even worry about it. Just find whatever you want and do it. But beyond that, if you're not going to muffle all of the life out of your drum, there's a couple of other things to think about, or a couple of other directions you can go. So you need to ask yourself, how am I going to use this kick drum? Is this kick drum always going to have a mic on it? And is everyone going to be experiencing this kick drum through some kind of amplified system, either being recorded or it's going to be coming through a PA or something like that. Because I actually have a different opinion than many people about what you should be getting out of a kick drum in those situations versus other situations. So if you're going to be doing those, if people are going to be hearing it mic'd up, I like kick drum heads that have a little bit of muffling built in, but not a lot. And the reason why is that you can always add more muffling to a kick drum, but you can't take out what's built into the head unless you get like an EMAD from Evans or something that has that removable foam, which we're going to get to in a minute. Anyway, but something like what I've got on my kick drum is a Remo, just a Power Stroke P3 clear. So it literally is, without anything in the drum, it's pretty boomy, pretty, open drum sounding. It's not very, and the other thing is there's not a lot of low end coming out of it in person. It's a very attack heavy kind of head. But when you mic up a drum, all that low end gets picked up that you can't hear with your ears. So you don't need a thick, heavy, super punchy cannon sounding kick drum head when you're going to mic things up. In fact, a lot of times the heads that do that, well, I'm thinking about like Aquarian super kick heads and even some of the EMAD heads if you tune them up. A lot of those heads generate that low end that you hear in person by generating a lot of tone, a lot of low tone that actually when you're trying to record, I think is pretty unpleasing. It ends up getting EQ'd out anyway by the engineer or the sound guy wherever you're playing. So those sounds go away anyway when you're playing mic'd up. They're not very good for getting mic'd up, actually. Some of those sounds aren't. So I like to go the other way. I like to get the attack that you can't create and manufacture and that pleasing kind of upper mid-range sound that comes through from a really nice kick drum sound. Along with the low end, of course. And the low end is there, but you can't hear it because those frequencies that I'm talking about are ones you would feel anyway. And there's just not enough air moving in the room to really push a low end sound out of a small drum without generating all that tone that I've talked about from the other pre-muffled heads. So that's my suggestion if you're going to be recording or miking up a drum, something like that. Of course, now there's the other side is I'm going to be playing in clubs or in small rooms where the kick drum may not get mic'd up or it may not have ample amplification or support from a sound system. In those cases, I think that some of the heads that I just mentioned earlier that aren't appropriate for live playing or for recording actually are appropriate in those cases. So Aquarian super kick heads are awesome for that. I know that Evans makes EMAD heads. I know that Remo makes some heads like that as well, and you're probably shouting the name of them at your MP3 player, or your phone, or whatever you're listening to this on right now. But I can't hear you, so I don't know what it's called. But I know Remo makes one too. All the big companies make those pre-muffled heads, and like I know some of them you can take the muffling out, and those are great for making a drum sound really low-endy and boomy without any support of a sound system. So if that's your goal, if you're not going to be miking up the drum, you're going to be playing and people are going to be just hearing the natural sound of the drum coming directly from the drum, maybe you should consider one of those pre-muffled heads. So those are my kind of 3 big tips, big factors. Otherwise, it doesn't matter as much. I know we all put a little bit of muffling on our kick drum. And so you're going to take a little bit of the character away of the drum head no matter what when you muffle it. So we don't need to overthink our kick drum head choice. Let's focus on playing. And I think the tuning of the other drums is much more challenging and deserves more of our attention. Now, of course, we don't want to poorly tune a kick drum head. Maybe I'll do a series on tuning kick drum heads soon. But otherwise, let's don't spend too much time worrying about the kick drum head. Once we've made those considerations, and those are important enough for us to spend our time thinking about those and then move on to enjoying playing the drums. All right, so I hope that you've enjoyed this. This has been helpful to you, and I will talk to you again very soon. Thanks for joining me. Bye.